Zara's life was normal. Perfectly, wonderfully normal. 10-year-old Zara loved Tuesdays because that meant art class, hated math with a fiery passion, and spent most afternoons building elaborate forts in her backyard with her best friend Leo. Her older brother Ben was a typical teenager, perpetually plugged into his headphones and offering sarcastic commentary on everything she did. He was 15, which in Zara's opinion, made him an expert in eye rolls and minimal conversation. That all changed on a particularly drizzly Saturday. A package arrived, addressed in a looping, familiar handwriting. It was from Aunt Lila, Zara's adventurous aunt who spent her life exploring the farthest corners of the world. Aunt Lila wasn't just an explorer, she was a storyteller, sending back postcards filled with tales of hidden waterfalls, talking parrots, and ancient ruins. Inside the package, nestled in layers of tissue paper, was a necklace. It wasn't made of gold or silver, but of something else. The pendant was a smooth, teardrop-shaped stone that pulsed with a soft, inner light, shifting between shades of emerald and sapphire. As Zara lifted it, a warmth spread through her fingers. "Whoa," she breathed, carefully clasping it around her neck. That's when she saw them. Tiny movements within the stone. Zara held her breath and peered closer. A miniature panda, no bigger than her thumb, was munching on a speck of something. Beside it, a fox, translucent and shimmering like a heat haze, flickered in and out of view. And clinging to the side, a chameleon, its scales swirling with every color imaginable. Zara gasped, stumbling back. What are those?" A small, leather-bound journal lay beneath the necklace. Its cover was embossed with a delicate compass rose. She flipped it open, and Aunt Lila's handwriting greeted her. "My dearest Zara, if you're reading this, you've discovered the little ones. They are residents of the Whispering Woods, a place of wonder and magic. The necklace is their temporary home, a safe haven while the woods recovers. Please, take good care of them. They need a calm environment, a little imagination, and very, very small snacks. The panda, Pip, loves bamboo shoots, good luck finding those. The fox, Lumi, thrives on quiet and enjoys a good story, and Chroma, the chameleon, needs a variety of colors to stay happy. The journal contains more detailed instructions, but mostly, trust your instincts, my dear. You have a kind heart, and they will sense that. With all my love, Aunt Lila." Zara reread the letter, her mind reeling. Magical animals living inside her necklace? It sounded like something straight out of one of Aunt Lila's stories. She carefully opened the journal, scanning the pages filled with tiny, precise notes. "Bamboo shoots. Right," she muttered, picturing a frantic search through the local grocery store. Just then, a shadow fell over her shoulder. "Whatcha got there?" Ben's voice, dripping with teenage boredom, made her jump. Zara instinctively covered the necklace with her hand. "Nothing. Just a gift from Aunt Lila." Ben raised an eyebrow, his skeptical gaze sweeping over her. "Looks kinda glowy for nothing." He reached out to get a closer look. Zara quickly stepped back, clutching the necklace tightly. "It's sensitive. I don't want to break it." Ben shrugged, clearly unconvinced. "Whatever. Just don't expect me to believe it's a magic necklace." He turned and headed back to his room, muttering something about weird ants and too much free time. Zara let out a shaky breath. That was close. Hiding this secret was going to be harder than she thought. She glanced down at the glowing pendant, at the tiny creatures within. This wasn't just a gift, it was a responsibility. And somehow, she knew her perfectly normal life was about to become anything but. The next morning, Zara was a woman on a mission: bamboo. Aunt Lila's journal had been very specific. Pip, the miniature panda, was a connoisseur, and wouldn't settle for just any leafy green. A frantic internet search revealed bamboo shoots weren't exactly a staple at Farmer McGregor's grocery store. "Seriously?" she muttered to herself, scrolling through websites offering exotic produce delivery. "It's cheaper to fly to China." Finally, she discovered a small Asian market on the other side of town. After a slightly embarrassing explanation to the shop owner about needing very, very small bamboo shoots, she returned triumphant with a tiny bundle, scarcely bigger than her pinky finger. Back in her room, she presented Pip with the offering. The miniature panda's eyes lit up, and he immediately began munching contentedly, tiny paws clutching the chute. "He likes it," Zara whispered, a grin spreading across her face. Lumi, the fox, proved more enigmatic. The journal said he enjoyed stories, but Zara wasn't sure how to deliver a captivating tale to a creature the size of a bumblebee. She started reading aloud from her favorite fantasy novel, The Star Weaver. Lumi, initially a shimmering blur, seemed to grow calmer as she read, eventually settling into a comfortable, almost solid form near the open page. Chroma, the chameleon, was the most playful. Zara discovered he could perfectly mimic any color she held up: her blue crayon, her red t-shirt, even the floral pattern on her curtains. It was mesmerizing to watch him shift and blend, becoming a living rainbow. "This is amazing," Zara breathed, carefully arranging a small shoebox, lined with soft cloth and miniature leaves, as a temporary habitat for her tiny friends. She added a tiny water droplet for Pip, a small, dark corner for Lumi, and a collection of colorful trinkets for Chroma. It wasn't much, but it was a start. "Okay, Operation Secret Zoo is a go." As she researched more about pandas, foxes, and chameleons, a thought struck her. All these animals were facing challenges in the wild, their habitats shrinking, their numbers dwindling. She dove down a rabbit hole of conservation websites, learning about endangered species and the importance of protecting their environments. It made her feel a strange connection to Pip, Lumi, and Chroma. They weren't just magical creatures, they were refugees, a tiny representation of a larger problem. The quiet afternoon was broken by a new arrival in town. A sleek, black car pulled up in front of the old Victorian house at the end of her street. A man emerged, tall and imposing, with silver hair and eyes that seemed to miss nothing. Zara learned from Mrs. Gable, her neighbor, that his name was Mr. Silas Blackwood, a wealthy collector with a reputation for acquiring unusual items. "He's been asking about local wildlife," Mrs. Gable said, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "Says he's interested in rare birds. But there's something about him. He just gives me the creeps." Zara felt a chill run down her spine. She couldn't shake the feeling that Mr. Blackwood's arrival wasn't a coincidence. As she watched him disappear inside the Victorian house, she hugged the necklace, feeling a surge of protectiveness towards the tiny creatures within. Something told her keeping their secret wasn't just about avoiding a lecture from Ben, it was about something much bigger. Later that evening, while sketching Chroma's latest color display, Zara reread a passage from Aunt Lila's journal. "The necklace is a temporary sanctuary, a bridge to the Whispering Woods. It is a place of ancient magic, a haven for creatures unseen by the modern world. The Whispering Woods. A hidden, magical place." The thought sparked a thrill of excitement and a flicker of fear. Where was this place? And what was threatening it? The journal felt warm in Zara's hands, almost pulsing with a faint energy. She traced the faded ink with her finger, determined to unlock more of Aunt Lila's secrets. The latest entry, written in a hurried scroll, spoke of a growing darkness threatening the Whispering Woods. "The heart of the woods is weakening," she read aloud, her voice barely a whisper. "A slå dren, like a leak in a well. The magic that sustains it, that protects it, is being consumed." Pip, who had been happily munching on bamboo, stopped and looked up, his tiny ears drooping. Lumi flickered, his ghostly form becoming momentarily translucent, as if mirroring the fading magic described in the journal. Chroma, usually a vibrant spectacle of color, dulled to a muted gray. Zara's heart ached. They knew. They felt it too. "What's happening?" she murmured to the animals, though she knew they couldn't verbally respond. "What's wrong with the woods?" The journal continued, revealing a terrifying truth. The Whispering Woods wasn't just a beautiful, hidden place, it was a source of immense magical power. And someone, the journal warned, was actively trying to exploit it for their own selfish gain. "Beware the collector," Aunt Lila had written. "He seeks not to understand the magic, but to possess it. He will stop at nothing to drain the woods dry, leaving it a barren wasteland." Zara shivered. The collector. Mr. Silas Blackwood. It couldn't be a coincidence. Suddenly, a loud knock on her door startled her.
Zara, you in Teere?
It was Ben, her brother. He leaned against the doorframe, a skeptical expression on his face. You've been acting weird all week.
Lock it in your room, whispering to yourself. What's going on?
Zara quickly slammed the journal shut, tucking it under her pillow. Nothing, she protested, a little too quickly. Just homework. Ben raised an eyebrow. Homework that requires you to lock the door and look like you've seen a ghost?
Come on, Zara. I'm your brother.
You can tell me. It's really nothing, Ben. Just a new project for school. She tried to sound convincing, but she knew she was failing miserably. A project involving secret whispers and frantic bamboo purchases. He grinned, trying to lighten the mood, but his eyes held a glint of curiosity. Seriously, what are you hiding?
Sa sight.
She knew she couldn't tell him the truth, not yet.
Just lie it, okay? I'll tell you when I'm ready.
Ben shrugged, but didn't push it. Fine. But if you start speaking in riddles, I'm staging an intervention. He winked and sauntered off, leaving Zara feeling both relieved and frustrated. Later that evening, while attempting to distract herself with a movie, Zara overheard voices coming from downstairs. Her parents were out, which meant Mr. Blackwood must be visiting. She crept to the top of the stairs, careful not to make a sound, and listened. The source is proving more elusive than anticipated, Mr. Blackwood's voice rumbled. But I assure you, my contacts are closing in. The energy signature is remarkable. A truly untapped potential.
A pause.
Then, a chillingly smooth reply.
And the specimens?
Have you located any of the unique wildlife? Not yet, Mr. Blackwood said, his voice laced with impatience. But I have a feeling my search will soon be rewarded. There are whispers of something unusual in this town, something magical.
Zara's blood ran cold.
He was talking about the Whispering Woods. And he was searching for them. She instinctively clutched the necklace, feeling the tiny creatures inside tremble. They were in danger. And she was the only one who could protect them. The next day at school felt wrong. Every glance from a stranger seemed suspicious. Every question felt like an interrogation. Zara found herself constantly scanning her surroundings, her hand instinctively going to the necklace hidden beneath her sweater. Mr. Blackwood's words from the previous night echoed in her mind, something magical. He was looking for them, for the woods. During lunch, she tried to subtly warn her friends, Maya and Leo. Did you hear about that Mr. Blackwood? She asked casually, picking at her salad. He's been asking around about weird animals. Like, really specific kinds. Maya, engrossed in a conversation about the upcoming school dance, barely looked up.
Mr. Blackwood? The Richki?
He's just eccentric, Zara. Probably collecting rare butterflies or something. Leo, ever the pragmatist, chimed in. Yeah, don't worry about it. He probably just has a hobby.
Besides, what weird animals are you talking about? Zara hesitated.
How could she explain shimmering pandas and phasing foxes without sounding completely insane?
Just unusual honest.
I don't know. It just felt off. You're being paranoid, Maya said with a dismissive wave of her hand. You've been acting strange lately.
Just relax.
Zara sighed inwardly. They wouldn't understand. She was on her own. The isolation was unsettling, but she knew she couldn't risk revealing the truth. After school, determined to learn more about the Whispering Woods, Zara visited Mrs. Hawthorne, the town librarian. The library was a haven of dusty books and quiet whispers, and Mrs. Hawthorne, a kindly woman with twinkling eyes, always had a story to share. Mrs. Hawthorne, Zara began, do you know anything about the history of the woods around here?
Like local legends or anything?
Mrs. Hawthorne smiled. Oh my dear, this town is steeped in folklore. You're likely referring to the Whispering Woods. It's said to be a place of ancient magic, protected by the spirits of the forest. Zara's heart leaped. Magic? Well, that's what the legends say. It's believed the woods were once a sanctuary for creatures driven from other lands, a place where they could live in peace, shielded from the outside world. There are tales of a powerful protective barrier, woven from the very essence of the forest. Mrs. Hawthorne paused, her eyes clouding with thought. But the stories also warn of those who would seek to exploit that magic, to break the barrier and steal the wood's power. Zara listened intently, absorbing every word.
It all connected, Aunt Lila's journal, the draining magic, Mr. Blackwood's search.
The woods were in danger, and she needed to understand how to protect them. That afternoon, Zara was sketching in her room, trying to design a more secure hiding place for the necklace, when she heard a familiar voice downstairs.
Mr. Blackwood.
He was talking to her parents, his voice smooth and persuasive.
Suddenly, a wave of panic washed over her.
She fumbled with the necklace, her fingers brushing against the cool metal. Pip squeaked softly, and she felt a tiny nudge against her skin. Just then, the door creaked open. Mr. Blackwood stood in the doorway, his eyes scanning the room. "Lovely artwork," he said, his gaze lingering on her sketchbook. "You have a talent for detail." Zara's breath caught in her throat. He was too close. If he looked down, he'd see the necklace. She instinctively clutched it tighter, her hand trembling. But before he could get any closer, Chroma, the chameleon, sprang into action. He instantly shifted to match the pattern of Zara's sweater, becoming almost invisible against the fabric. Lumi, the fox, flickered and phased through Zara's desk chair, creating a momentary distortion in the air that caught Mr. Blackwood's attention. "Did you see that?" he murmured, tilting his head.
A trick of the light, perhaps.
Pip, despite his size, added to the distraction by letting out a tiny, high-pitched squeak, mimicking the sound of a faulty electrical wire.
Mr.
Blackwood frowned, looking around the room with suspicion. "Strange," he muttered. "I could have sworn." He turned his attention back to Zara, but the moment had passed. The animal's combined efforts had diverted his gaze, preventing him from discovering the necklace. "I apologize for interrupting," he said, regaining his composure. "I was just admiring your unique sense of style." He gave her a knowing look and then, with a polite nod, retreated from the room. Zara slumped against her chair, her heart pounding. That was too close. She looked down at the necklace, tears welling up in her eyes. "You saved me," she whispered. "You saved us all." Pip nuzzled her finger, Lumi flickered reassuringly, and Chroma shimmered with a vibrant display of gratitude. They were more than just magical creatures. They were her friends, her allies. And together, they would face whatever dangers lay ahead. The clue was tucked away on the last page of Aunt Lila's journal, disguised as a botanical sketch. It wasn't the drawing of the flower itself, but the tiny notation beneath it, where the weeping willow kisses the stone. Zara had spent the entire morning scouring Oakhaven Park, her heart pounding with a mixture of hope and trepidation. Oakhaven wasn't a sprawling wilderness, just a small, well-maintained park a few blocks from her house, but it held a certain quiet charm. Finally, she found it. A massive weeping willow, its branches trailing like emerald curtains, stood near an ancient, moss-covered stone bench. As she approached, she noticed something peculiar. The willow's branches didn't just touch the stone, they seemed to meld with it, forming a shimmering, almost invisible barrier. "This is it," she breathed, her fingers tracing the outline of the shimmering distortion. Pip, nestled inside her necklace, let out an excited squeak. Lumi pulsed with a soft, ethereal glow. Chroma, ever cautious, shifted to a muted green, blending seamlessly with the willow's leaves. Taking a deep breath, Zara reached out and pushed through the barrier. It felt like stepping into cool water, a momentary tingling sensation that spread through her body. And then, she was there. The air in the whispering woods was heavy with a strange stillness. It wasn't silent exactly, but the usual sounds of a forest, birdsong, rustling leaves were muted, as if muffled by a thick blanket. The trees, once vibrant and lush, were now fading. Their leaves were losing their color, turning brittle and brown at the edges. The bark seemed dull, lacking its usual vitality. It was as if the woods were slowly being drained of its life force. Zara walked deeper, her footsteps muffled by the soft, decaying undergrowth. She saw a small clearing where a group of creatures huddled together. A family of deer, their coats looking patchy and thin, a cluster of rabbits, their fur lacking its usual sheen. They looked weak, listless, their eyes filled with a quiet despair. "It's worse than I imagined," she whispered, her voice trembling. Suddenly, a twig snapped behind her. Zara whirled around, her heart leaping into her throat. Standing at the edge of the clearing was a young boy, looking utterly bewildered. It was her brother, Ben. He hadn't meant to follow her, she knew. He'd been suspicious of her secretive behavior for days, and curiosity had finally gotten the better of him. But seeing the woods, even for a fleeting moment, was enough to shatter his skepticism. His jaw dropped. He stared at the fading trees, the listless animals, and then at Zara, his eyes wide with disbelief. What is this place?" he stammered. Before Zara could answer, Chroma sprang into action. He blended perfectly with the surrounding foliage, becoming virtually invisible, effectively camouflaging Zara. He was a master of deception, and his quick thinking saved them from being discovered. "Ben, you shouldn't be here," Zara hissed, pulling him back towards the portal. "It's complicated." He didn't argue. He simply followed her, his mind clearly reeling. As they stepped back through the shimmering barrier, the vibrant colors of Oakhaven Park seemed almost blindingly bright. Back in the park, Ben stared at Zara, his expression a mixture of confusion and awe. I saw it. The trees. They were dying. And the animals." Zara nodded, relieved that he'd seen enough to understand, even if he didn't fully grasp the magic involved. "The woods are in trouble, Ben. Someone is draining its magic." As they walked home, Zara spotted something lying on the forest floor, just inside the portal. It was a single flower, once a vibrant shade of sapphire blue, now withered and gray. She carefully picked it up, its delicate petals crumbling in her fingers. "I'm going to keep this," she said, clutching the flower tightly, "as a reminder of what we need to protect." Ben, still shaken by what he'd witnessed, simply nodded. "What do we do?" Zara looked at her brother, a newfound determination in her eyes. "We fight back."
The wit-haired blue flower felt heavy in Zara's palm, a constant aching reminder of the whispering woods fading life.
Back in her room, a frantic energy had taken hold. Ben, surprisingly, hadn't retreated into skepticism. He'd spent the afternoon sketching diagrams of the portal, muttering about energy signatures and dimensional distortions. He still didn't believe in magic exactly, but he believed Zara, and he believed something extraordinary was happening. "Okay, so the energy readings spiked when you went through," Ben said, pointing to a hastily drawn chart on his laptop. "And they're fluctuating now, getting weaker. It's like whatever's powering that portal is being drained." Zara paced, anxiety twisting in her stomach. "It's not just the portal, Ben. It's the woods itself. And I think Mr. Blackwood knows about it." She recounted overhearing his phone call, the chilling phrases about a source of immense power and rare specimens echoing in her mind. A knot of fear tightened in her chest. "We need to warn Aunt Lila," Zara said, grabbing her phone. She scrolled through her contacts, finding her aunt's number. But as she pressed the call button, the screen flickered, then displayed no signal. "That's odd," she murmured. "I always have signal here." She tried again and again, but the phone remained stubbornly silent. "It's the woods," Ben said, his brow furrowed. "The draining effect. Maybe it's interfering with communications." He tapped furiously at his laptop. "There's a magical interference pattern. It's messing with radio waves, cell signals, everything." Just then, a frantic squeak came from inside the necklace. Pip, the tiny panda, was practically vibrating with distress. Lumi, the fox, flickered in and out of visibility, a ghostly shimmer of worry. Chroma, the chameleon, remained a pale, anxious gray. "What is it, Pip?" Zara asked, gently holding the necklace. "Blackwood." A tiny voice, amplified by the necklace's magic, echoed in her ear. He found the willow. He's building a machine."
It markes the sadness, stronger. Zara's blood ran cold.
"He found the portal?"
Ben's face paled.
"He's not just a collector, is he? He's trying to Steal the magic? He is, Zara said grimly. And he's building something to help him do it. They raced to the window overlooking Oakhaven Park. And there, partially hidden by a cluster of trees, was a makeshift structure. A tangle of metal scaffolding, wires, and strange, glowing devices. Mr. Blackwood himself was overseeing the operation, barking orders at two burly assistants. That's huge, Ben breathed, his eyes wide. What is that thing? It's a magic amplifier, Zara said, her voice tight with dread. He's going to use it to drain the Whispering Woods even faster. She looked down at the tiny creatures nestled inside her necklace. Pip, Lumi, and Chroma looked up at her, their miniature faces filled with a quiet courage. We have to stop him, Zara said, her voice trembling slightly. But I don't know how. I'm just one girl. Lumi's ghostly form pulsed with a reassuring light. We are with you, she whispered, her voice a faint chime. Pip squeaked in agreement. Small but strong. Chroma shifted to a vibrant, determined blue. We will help. Zara smiled, a surge of warmth flooding her chest. She wasn't alone. She had her brother, and she had her tiny, magical friends. Okay, she said, turning to Ben. Jure a tek vizat. Can you find a way to disrupt that machine, even from here? Ben nodded, already typing furiously on his laptop. I can try. It's a long shot, but I can run a counter-frequency, try to overload its systems. But I need time. We'll buy you time, Zara said, her gaze fixed on the ominous structure in the park. We have to. The Whispering Woods is counting on us. The plan, hatched in a whirlwind of whispered ideas and frantic keyboard clicks, was audacious, bordering on insane. But it was all they had. Ben had managed to isolate the core frequency of Blackwood's device, and was working on a counter-program, but it was slow going. It would buy them time, maybe, but wouldn't shut the machine down completely. They needed a distraction, and a way to physically interfere. That's where the pocket-sized zoo came in. Okay, Lumi, you're up first, Zara instructed, her voice barely a breath. The ghostly fox shimmered, already beginning to fade. Can you phase into the machine and, I don't know, mess with the wiring? Just something small to cause a short circuit? I can try, Lumi's voice chimed, a little shaky. But it's crowded in there. Lots of metal. With a final flicker, she vanished, slipping through the metal scaffolding like a whisper. Zara held her breath, watching as sparks briefly flew from the device, followed by a frustrated yell from one of Blackwood's assistants. What was that? Just a minor fluctuation. Blackwood barked. Get it under control. That's our cue, Zara said to Chroma. Can you mimic the colors of a poisonous snake? Just around the perimeter. Scare them a little. The chameleon instantly rippled with vibrant greens and yellows, mimicking the scales of a highly venomous viper. Zara carefully guided Chroma, projecting the illusion onto the surrounding foliage. The assistants, already on edge, jumped back with startled cries. Snakes! Get rid of them! One of them shrieked, waving a wrench wildly. The distraction worked perfectly. While Blackwood was occupied with the flailing assistants and illusory snakes, Pip, the tiny panda, was put into action. Zara carefully positioned the necklace near a critical support beam of the machine. Okay, Pip, on my mark, grip. With surprising strength, the miniature panda latched onto the beam, shaking it with all his might. It wasn't enough to topple the structure, but it caused a series of unsettling creaks and groans. What's happening? Blackwood roared, his face turning purple with rage. The structure is unstable, sir. One of the assistants yelled. We need to reinforce it. Zara and Ben exchanged a relieved glance. It was working. Chaos reigned. But the reprieve was short-lived. Blackwood, recovering quickly, spotted Zara and Ben watching from the window. His eyes narrowed with suspicion. You! He bellowed, pointing a finger at them. You're behind this. He barked orders, and the assistants began to advance towards the park entrance. Get them. I want to know what they're up to. Time to go. Zara shouted, grabbing Ben's hand. They bolted, heading for the hidden portal, knowing Blackwood wouldn't hesitate to follow. They burst through the portal into the Whispering Woods, the air immediately cooler and thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. But the woods were even more desolate than Zara remembered. The trees stood gaunt and lifeless, their branches reaching like skeletal fingers. Blackwood and his assistants stumbled through the portal moments later, their faces contorted with anger. "So, this is where you've been hiding your little friends," Blackwood sneered, scanning the dying forest. A pathetic attempt to protect a dying world. Zara knew they couldn't fight him directly. They were outnumbered and outmatched. But she had one last trick up her sleeve. Remembering her research, she began to mimic the calls of several endangered predators. A growl here, a screech there, amplifying them with the necklace's magic. "What was that?" one of the assistants whimpered, glancing nervously into the shadows. Zara continued, layering the sounds, creating the illusion of a dangerous, teeming ecosystem. "This forest is protected," she called out, her voice echoing through the trees. "By creatures you wouldn't understand. Creatures that won't hesitate to defend their home." The assistants, thoroughly spooked, began to back away. Blackwood, however, remained unfazed. He pressed forward, determined to reach the source of the wood's magic. Meanwhile, Ben was still working feverishly on his laptop, managing to overload a secondary system within Blackwood's device, causing it to sputter and groan. "I've got it." It's not a full shutdown, but it's slowed the draining process significantly. He called out. The chase was on. Zara, with the help of Lumi's phasing abilities to scout ahead and Chroma's camouflage to blend into the environment, led Blackwood and his assistants on a wild goose chase through the withering woods, buying Ben precious time. They were a small team, facing a powerful enemy, but they were determined to protect the magic of the Whispering Woods, no matter the cost. Zara, heart pounding, finally stood before Mr. Blackwood, the sputtering device looming between them. The forest held its breath, the silence broken only by the crackling of failing machinery. Ben stood protectively beside her, his laptop clutched in his hands. "It doesn't have to be this way," Zara said, her voice surprisingly steady. "This forest, it's not just a source of power. It's a living thing. It's home to creatures you can't even imagine, creatures that deserve to be protected." Blackwood scoffed, his eyes gleaming with a cold, unwavering ambition. "Sentimental nonsense. This magic, as you call it, is a resource. A source of energy that could change the world. And I intend to harness it. Change it for the worse." Zara retorted, stepping forward. "You're draining the life out of this place. Don't you see? Everything is connected. If you destroy this forest, you destroy a part of yourself." He simply laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "You're a child, meddling in things you don't understand." Zara knew words wouldn't work. He was too consumed by his greed. She glanced at the necklace, a silent plea passing between her and the tiny creatures within. Lumi, Chroma, and Pip responded instantly. A faint glow emanated from the pendant, growing brighter with each passing second. "We're ready, Zara," Lumi's voice resonated softly in her mind. "It's risky, but we can do this." "Together," Zara whispered, her hand tightening around the necklace. Chroma began to shift, not mimicking colors this time, but radiating pure, vibrant light. Lumi phased through the air, swirling around the device, disrupting its energy flow. And Pip, despite his size, focused all his energy, sending a concentrated pulse of magical force toward the machine's core. The combined effort was overwhelming. The device shuddered violently, sparks flying in all directions. A high-pitched whine filled the air, escalating into a deafening roar. Blackwood stumbled back, shielding his eyes. "What's happening?" he shrieked, his voice laced with panic. "It's overloading," Ben yelled, frantically typing on his laptop. "The feedback loop is unstable." With a final, spectacular burst of light and energy, the device exploded in a shower of harmless sparks and smoke. The draining effect ceased immediately. A wave of warmth washed over the Whispering Woods. Zara felt it first, a tingling sensation that spread through her limbs. Then, she saw it. The trees, previously gray and lifeless, began to regain their color. Tiny buds sprouted on barren branches. A faint melody filled the air, the song of returning life. Blackwood, covered in soot and defeated, was quickly apprehended by park rangers who had finally arrived, alerted by Ben's earlier call. As the rangers led Blackwood away, Zara sank to her knees, exhausted but exhilarated. The necklace pulsed warmly against her skin. "We did it," Pip chirped weakly. "We saved the woods." "It is good to feel the magic returning," Lumi added, her voice regaining its strength. "A wonderful display of colors," Cromer exclaimed, shimmering with renewed brilliance. Zara knew this was goodbye. The animals, their purpose fulfilled, could finally return to their home, now safe and revitalized. A bittersweet ache filled her heart. "Thank you," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "You were the best little team a girl could ask for." As she said the words, the necklace began to dim, the animals slowly fading from view. With a final, collective shimmer, they were gone. Later that evening, Zara sat on her porch with Ben, watching the sunset. The air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers, a gift from the restored Whispering Woods. "So," Ben said, a smile playing on his lips, "you were right. About everything." Zara laughed. "I told you there was magic in the world." "I guess I was just a little skeptical," Ben admitted. "But seeing that forest come back to life, it was incredible." "We did it together," Zara said, bumping his shoulder. "I couldn't have done it without you." Suddenly, her phone buzzed. It was a video message from Aunt Lila. "Zara, my brave adventurer." Aunt Lila's face beamed from the screen. "I knew you could do it. You have a remarkable gift for connecting with the natural world, and an even more remarkable heart. Remember, the greatest magic lies not in power, but in kindness and courage. And never underestimate the power of a little help from your friends." Zara smiled, her heart overflowing with gratitude. She had saved a magical forest, forged a stronger bond with her brother, and discovered a strength within herself she never knew she possessed. The adventure had changed her, and she knew with absolute certainty that this was just the beginning.